All right, our next question by a theist that we must answer is the absence of proof the proof of absence? And usually this question is phrased, is the absence of evidence evidence of absence? Let's take that original one where we use the word evidence instead of proof. Is the absence of evidence evidence of absence? Yes, it is. For example, if I were to say that there is no elephant in this room, based on the conditions of this room being of a finite size and the average size of an elephant, I can say with a high degree of confidence that there is no elephant in this room.
And the fact that we're in, Roppongi Hills, in the middle of a coffee shop.
So right.
There's a high probability. In fact, I would say that there's such a high probability that it substantiates what we would call proof that there is no evidence, or that there is no elephant in the room.
So the original question is absence of evidence of absence. Yes, it is. Now this person rephrases this, is absence of proof the proof of absence? And we're going to have to deal with the word proof a bit, because proof has two different meanings. One is very rigorous. In deductive reasoning, there are logical and mathematical proofs that are absolute within those frameworks, the logical and mathematical frameworks. However, if you're talking about inductive proof, that's a way to use proof that is a little less rigorous and a little more subjective. It just means simply a high degree of confidence. So,
yes.
Based on these two different definitions of proof, how would you answer this?
Okay, so when we talk about the scientific proof, as it were, based on evidence,
inductive evidence.
Mm-hmm. Then I mean, there are levels of probability associated with anything.
Right. Well, when we say proof inductively, that's just another word for a high degree of evidence.
Yes.
So that goes back to the original formulation of the statement. Is absence of evidence evidence of absence? And we've agreed that yes, it is, depending upon the situation.
Well, I think that there is sort of a questionable aspect of this, in that there are, for example, because for a long time no one ever experienced or witnessed a black swan. Mm-hmm. So they believed, therefore, there were no black swans. Mm-hmm. They believed that all swans were white or off-white.
Right.
But then later on, it was a black swan was discovered.
That's right.
I believe in Australia. Mm-hmm. I can't remember exactly where.
However, every place they found a lack of black swans was evidence that there were no such thing as a black swan.
Well,
it was not a high degree of evidence,
but
it was
a high degree.
accumulating.
That to me was more deductive evidence than it was inductive.
Oh, on the other side, to show that there were black swans. I mean, all you need is one counterexample, and
correct.
Deductively, you can say that the original statement that all swans are white would be wrong. But on the other side, to say that all swans are white, to inductively assess that by looking around and seeing another white swan and another white swan, that gives you, and farther around the world where swans would be expected to exist, then that is increasing evidence for the fact that all swans are white.
Yeah, exactly. So, going back to the question, when we talk about this evidence, and we talk about the absence of evidence being the evidence of absence, but he's worded it proof. So when we talk about proof, I understand how he's sort of framing the question, and the purpose of it is that he wants to say that simply because we have no proof of God does not mean there is no God. But unfortunately, through scientific method, we cannot determine, with any degree of probability that there is a God. And therefore, if we are to take the scientific approach, we have to, conclude that based on the evidence, there's a high probability that there is no God. But does that mean that there is no God? And I would say you can't say that simply as you couldn't say there are no black swans. And that's sort of the approach I have that is a bit different from the atheist.
I think that's why neither one of us are atheists.
Correct. Because there's a probability of anything. I mean, to be honest.
However, I think we are atheists in respect to the Christian God.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
The Christian God is impossible. It's logically absurd. So
logically absurd. It's historical fallacies in Scripture. The textual criticism has proven that all of the extant texts that we have variations. Some to large degrees, some to small degrees, some scribal errors, some are significant contributors to theology, like the Trinity and whatnot. So, and then based on also the historicity of Christ Himself, there is doubt as to whether or not he really was who is claimed to be in Scripture. And that he existed and went through those things, because we just there's mounting evidence against it.
So sorry, Christians. There may be a God, but your God is disqualified as a candidate.
And there may be 1,000 or 1,000,000 or infinity gods. Who knows? We don't have evidence now to claim either one way or the other. But what we
do have the absence of evidence.
We have the absence of evidence, but
I
don't
leads
think
me to believe that there's no personal God. There may be a Spinozian God or an Einsteinian God of some sort. That's more probable. But even then, it's less than certain.
The God that doesn't roll dice.
That's right.
Yeah.